not have sexual relations.
I realize that this is something he is
We're going to be able to solve our problems if we get distracted by sideshows and carnival barkers.
One Republican, one Democrat, and you discuss the issues that matter in today's local, state, national, and global politics. Hosted by Steve Hickson with co-hosts John Stanberry and Franklin Chansey. This is Backfire.
Good morning, everyone. Welcome to another edition of Backfire with Franklin Chansey and John Stanberry, myself, Steve Doball Hickson, and our chief engineer, Daniel Brantley.
Where's the beef?
Yeah, where is the beef? What?
Not on your burger, apparently.
That's right. Not on your burger anymore. Not in the chicken. Jeff Yarber. Let's start off with Jeff. Bless his heart. Jeff was a good guy. He's a hard worker. He had a rough life, came up through the Boys and Girls Club. He was one of the Boys and Girls Club kids, and I just hated to see what happened, that he had such an early death. But I know, John, you wanted to say a few things about Jeff this morning. So,
well, I just, Jeff, there were several people that told me when they read that he had passed away, were surprised at how long he had been on the commission. He started when Lisa started, and so he's been on, I believe, about 18 years, which is a long time. And Jeff really, really cared about what he did. Not to get myself in trouble, there are people that get on the commission because they want to have some power and some control, and some of them enjoy that. Jeff really wanted to help people, and he loved the people of Bradley County. He specifically loved the people of the 5th District. That was where he came from. He never left. He never forgot that. I'll tell you a really good story about Jeff. Y'all may remember, I'm sure Franklin does, back when he first went on, the Fort Hill Cemetery situation was really coming to a head. And the city council got involved and the county commission got involved trying to get that cleaned up. And to be honest, there were a bunch of people that were grandstanding on it. And every time we had a event where we were going to talk about that, there were people from, especially the city council, that would come and get in the picture.
Yeah.
And Jeff was almost never in the picture. But I don't know how many times I drove by Fort Hill Cemetery and Jeff was out there with a push mowing the cemetery. And to be honest, Rod Davis was usually with Jeff helping to mow that. But I came by one time and I said, Jeff, I'm going to take your picture and I'm going to send it into the banner, because all these other people show up for the photo op, but don't actually do anything. And Jeff said it didn't matter to him, that he did it because, he thought it was the right thing to do and he wanted it cleaned up.
Well, it's appropriate. They're going to bury Jeff at Fort Hill tomorrow.
Tomorrow?
Mm-hmm.
What time is the service there? Did it say?
It's Thursday evening, isn't it?
I think so, yeah.
Okay.
Tomorrow evening at South Cleveland, is it Church of God? Is that where he attended?
Okay.
But I will say this, though, the one thing he did love more than the 5th District was those two girls of his. As busy as Jeff was, Jeff drove them places, went to the games with them. He loved those girls, and I know they know that, but it's just tough to lose your dad when you're younger.
When you have someone that young, 49 is a very young age to leave this world with something that just, comes from nowhere like that. So,
well, I tell you,
my dad died when he was 42.
Jeff was a character. I will tell you all this. It's been a while back, but Jeff and I went we'd been out one night and we decided to go by the VFW. And it was probably around 1 a.m. And we walked up, and there were two, I say bouncers, they weren't, bouncers, they were the doormen, but there were two doormen out front. And when we walked up, they both looked and they went, Jeff, man, it's a rough crowd tonight. We sure are glad to see you. And I looked at Jeff and I went, Jeff, I don't know if that means I want to stay real close to you or way the hell away from you. And Jeff just laughed.
Well, Jeff was a Golden Glove boxing champion, wasn't he?
Yeah, and you know what's weird about that? Jeff was the nicest guy in the world. I mean, I never saw Jeff. We were at a local establishment, and this guy was just going at Jeff. I was 15 or 20 feet away. I could tell that the guy was kind of heated, and Jeff had his hands in his pockets, and he just had this nice smile on his face, and he just stood there and took it. And out of the blue, the guy cold cocks him, hits him right under the chin and the neck there. And like I said, Jeff had his hands in his pockets. And you want to see panic on someone's face. When he hit him, Jeff stepped back about 2 steps, didn't pull his hands out of his pocket, stepped back up with a big smile and went, "That all you got?" And that guy's face, because you cold cock someone and they don't go down. And Jeff and I went over and said, "We need to go, Jeff. we need to leave." But he didn't get mad. He didn't hit the guy back. The guy took off, tried to get away at that point because Jeff was just a unique individual and rose to the occasions in life, and I think the community will miss him.
Well, anyway, Jeff had a lot of friends, so he'll be thought of for a long time. It's a sad situation.
Well, please keep the family and those 2 girls in your prayers.
All right. Speaking of the Boys and Girls Club, Jeff did go through the Boys and Girls Club. The other day, we had our board meeting and had Senator Gardenhire and Mike Bell there. And they spoke on the governor's new program. He believes, the new governor really believes in prison reform. And I think it's got some people scared, but he's got a plan for it. And it sounded like a good plan. And but basically, where these prisoners that are in there for drug violations and things like that, rather than them going through the system, getting out, coming back in, they want to get them trained and educated and find them a way to find work. Most of the prisoners, when they come out of prison, they can't find a job because they have a record. So they're trying to do a Valor program where somebody can work with them in a business situation and try to get them over the hump. The governor, from what I understand, with his electrical company, started a program like that within his company years ago.
Well, I think that's a noble effort. And all too often we kind of overlook in the criminal justice system the idea that while we want to impose punishments, we want that punishment to come to an end and people to go on and be productive citizens. And that's certainly something that is a step in the right direction.
Well, I don't know. The prisons are so full. What was it? $2 billion a year or something we're spending on prisoners?
At least, I would imagine.
I think that's just in the state.
No, it's just here.
Yeah, just in our state.
It's very expensive.
Well, I mean, I don't have any problem with any of these programs. I just hope that we don't also forget about the victims of the crimes.
Oh, yeah.
I'm all for trying to rehabilitate people, but I don't want to let the victims get pushed to the back burner.
Well, many of the people we're talking about have committed offenses that society's the victim as opposed to an individual. And in fact, the vast majority.
Actually, that's probably not true. I understand where you're going with that, Franklin, but those people fueled that drug habit by petty crime, by robbery, burglary. There are victims of all of that. So, yes, they're a victim, society's a victim of their drug dependency, but there are specific crimes they commit to fund that drug dependency.
And that's what got them put in jail.
Absolutely.
And that's what they're there for.
And that's why they got a sentence. And once that sentence over, we should be looking for ways to reintegrate those people into the
I don't
society,
disagree.
so we're not incarcerating them
Just want to
again.
make sure we don't lose the concept that there is a victim here as well that needs help and encouragement.
Well, I don't think the governor's looking at it from that perspective. I think he's looking at trying to help prisoners get back home to their homes and their families and get rid of the single dads and
There was
single mother families and some of that kind of stuff.
There was a startling article on the CBS Sunday Morning News this week that ostensibly was about dyslexia. But buried in the middle of it was a story from Louisiana and from Texas. They had done two studies in prisons in Louisiana and Texas, and they found something that was really astounding to me. 50% nearly of the inmates in both those facilities in both states were dyslexic. And the takeaway from that was that we don't identify that typically in very young children, and because they struggle so much with reading that they begin to have very low self-esteem because they fail in school repeatedly because they aren't getting resources for that. And it was really a strong suggestion that there's a link there to later becoming involved in the criminal justice system.
Well, I mean, that's the kind of thing we ought to be looking at. I don't disagree at all on that. And I can tell you from personal experience, it's hard sometimes to get children tested, because what happens is if they get tested and they test positive, well, then they're required to give resources. Mm-hmm. So it's easier just to kind of put it off and not test. And dyslexia is not I want to say this too, dyslexia is not a mental deficiency.
Oh, no.
Dyslexia, matter of fact, a lot of the dyslexic people are highly intelligent, actually gifted. The problem is their brain just doesn't see things. And so I'll give you a good example. One of the treatments for dyslexia, you can take a child and they'll do a reading test, and they'll get words that are 2 or 3 or 4 years above their grade level, but they'll miss it and they just don't, like if you ask them to read a paragraph, they just don't see those words. Now here's how kind of cool in one hand, but sad at the same time. One of the treatments is you can take a blue transparent overlay, and you can lay that blue overlay over the page, and when you lay that over the page, they can see those words. So it's just it's a connection type, electrical type connection thing. Mm-hmm, it's not an intelligence thing at all. And in a way, to Franklin's point, I'll be the liberal here for a minute, that may make it even worse. So if you think about someone who intellectually is at the best or at worst average and maybe even gifted, but at the same time they can't achieve, they can't accomplish anything,
are feeling like they're a failure.
Very frustrating.
It was a real eye-opener to me.
I felt this way all my life. That I had something keeping me from
that. So you're going to diagnose yourself at this age
something
as
was holding
dyslexic.
me back. I know something was holding me back.
Buy yourself a blue transparency, okay?
Oh, Lord. Anybody understand what Powell Huff Parkway 2.0 project is?
No, not really.
Anybody?
Well, it appeared to me that there was an effort being made to extend Powell Huff Parkway at some point.
What, out across 60?
Apparently
it's
so.
always supposed to have done that, wasn't it?
Well, I guess there was a long-range plan that nobody ever thought would get implemented, but they were actually apparently looking into whether there's some grants and so forth available for that.
My problem is if you extend it over to
Harrison Pike is what they're talking about, wasn't it?
That's a
Long way.
That's coming off.
Godly expensive project.
That's going to come off of that exit 20. I think is where you'll get off that exit there, and then you'll go left, and that's dead end now. I mean, basically, it just ties
by
in
the dump, you mean?
Yeah.
I think the idea would be to connect it so that it becomes connectable to that industrial park and so forth out there.
But you think
it'd be a very
about
expensive project.
and the first leg or two of it, the homes, the private homes you're going to end up buying and impacting.
You know, Cleveland's got to do something, but that's going to be another, that'll be another north-south. That won't be an east-west. We need east-west, don't we?
I would think that north-south is the higher volume traffic.
Yeah, but one of the problems that we've talked about, if you don't have east-west, you can't get on the north-south connectors. You got to have more cross.
I guess the theory is people on the north and the south could reach Paul Huff Parkway and not have to pass in between there. It's kind of like the perimeter in Atlanta.
Well, I'm sure it's hopefully here's the problem, though. They would see it as a bypass. But it was a bypass when they first built the section we have now, and then we have agreed every time we've built one of these not to commercialize them, and every time we've commercialized them. Oh, this time it'll be different. So, I stumbled across an interesting story. They were talking about the design of Washington, D.C. and the design of Manhattan and New York. And I guess I'd seen this, but I'd never really thought about it. New York is laid out in a completely, almost perfect grid pattern. You can stand on one street and you can look for miles down that street and see horizon outside of it. DC fans out, which is a nice, beautiful design, but probably not as efficient. So this is part of what we're talking about. You've got to have cross pattern. You've got to have streets that go all the way through. And how we get there, I don't know.
Well, I don't know. They're working on 25th Street in Ocoee. It's supposed to be. What do you think they're going to do there?
Well, I don't know what they can do. I know that some of the people that lived in some of the impacted areas complained. I personally, when we lived downtown, to me it didn't make sense to increase the volume of that headed towards the downtown, and right when you got to 20th Street, funnel it all back down into 2 lanes.
Well, they've just finished a widening at West Side Drive and 25th Street there to alleviate some of the traffic coming out by the Waffle House there, which has been backed up every day.
It's been backed up every year.
They just finished a project there widening that.
I don't think they finished.
But here's one of the things. We were talking about north-south connectors. One of the reasons for that is because people get on that to avoid the traffic lights on Keith Street, which we've talked about. If you'll put traffic lights up on Ocoee, take traffic lights down on Keith, or certainly get them synchronized, you could funnel or push more traffic onto a 4-lane. But we don't do that. We do this idiotic stuff where we put, like on Ocoee, unless you're really committed to in the historic district buying property and widening that road, you need traffic lights on it to shut it down a little bit and force people over to Keith, which we used to have.
We've got 17th Street there.
Well, but now, Steve, you're older than me. I'm old enough to remember there were traffic lights all up and down Ocoee. There was a traffic light at 8th Street, which probably ought to be put back. That's a
lot of accidents at that.
That's a high
there
accident.
at the monument.
There are a lot of accidents at that location.
There was a traffic light there, and they took it down.
Yeah.
On a slightly positive note, though, pretty nice site. I think over 100 people showed up this past weekend to finish the cleanup and work at Deer Park down there, and looks like that's a really nice thing for the community and something that the community bought into.
The second time we've done that.
Yeah.
What did they do with I didn't go down there this time. What did my children's hand, my daughter's hand was on some of the fencing down there.
I don't know
first
the answer
time.
to that one.
They got rid of it, I'm sure.
You think they'll change the name of the park now?
I hadn't heard that.
Why would they?
I don't think. Well, I feel like you. Why would they? Because it is a historical marker, Deer Park. But it doesn't look like Deer Park anymore. It looks like Jurassic Park.
Jurassic Park.
I used to go down there and chase minnows in that creek. I don't know.
Oh, yeah.
Till they started glowing.
You catch crawdaddies in that creek.
Oh,
Yeah, we used to do that.
That was my fun place to go. Play in the creek was there at Deer Park.
Crawl under those walkways.
That's right. And get on that merry-go-round they had down there That thing can send you slinging.
Well, the thing Bill Cosby said, you get on it, go round, and get off and vomit.
That's right.
So, yeah.
Or you go round, and get slung off and break an arm.
Knock your head open. That's true.
They had one of those at the Starview Drive-In. I played on 2 of them in my lifetime. They were tough toys, I'll tell you that. You had to be a tough kid to get on that thing.
They still have those. Those haven't been outlawed.
We had those at elementary school.
Yeah, they're still around.
And they weren't any safer then either.
They're heavier, and they don't. You could get that thing, especially the little kids that get on there, and then a couple of big kids would come over and grab the hold of it and really get it going.
At the Starview Drive-In, all the mamas and daddies would let all the kids out to go down to the playground right before the movie started, and they had one of those things down there, and those big kids would get that thing going. I bet that thing was doing 200 miles an hour. It was scary.
Well, they're very heavy, and they're hard to get moving very fast.
And they're hard to slow down once you get them moving. So. All right, what's happened in the national news this week? Franklin, what's Trump done wrong this week?
Well, he had quite.
Well, let's talk about you.
Well,
you've been keeping up with it. I haven't.
Let's give him a shout out this week. He passed a milestone this week.
What's that?
Well, during his 8 years, President Obama issued 436 tweets, and President Trump hit 43,600 this year.
I'm sure, but that's the way he communicates with people.
Yeah.
And it's also one of the ways. It's the way he got elected.
It's amazing how much time he has.
That's a
lot of time.
Outside of actually going to Michigan, Wisconsin, and Pennsylvania, he got elected by tweeting.
Well, that's interestingly enough.
Let me throw something out that maybe we can agree with. Okay.
Oh Lord, this ought to be something. Well, first off, let's have silence if we're going to agree.
If y'all want to talk about this one's kind of sad. The new survey on millennials. The level of support for patriotism, religion, and children has dropped to some historic lows among the millennial generation. 61% of the new survey cited patriotism. This is overall. This is the whole survey. Yeah. 61% said that patriotism was very important, which is down 9 percentage points from 1998. 50% cited religion, which is down 12 points. 43 placed a high value on having children, which is down 16 points. Now, that's the overall survey. When you pull the millennials out, the just 40% said that patriotism was important.
Isn't that amazing?
So a supermajority of Americans, 39 to 61, prize patriotism, but just 40% of millennials.
What do you think's changed patriotism?
Well, what's weird about this is Generation X is actually a little above the millennials. So the generation behind the millennials, it has a little more value on some of these things. The problem is next year, millennials will overtake baby boomers as the largest generational group in America.
Sure.
So some of this stuff's kind of scary.
What do you think has hurt patriotism?
I think you've had a media complex and quite frankly the schools that have hammered this idea that America's always to blame. It's our fault. And look, we have plenty of flaws. We've always had plenty of flaws.
You think Obama started it with the apology tour?
I think Obama was more a reflection of it than a cause. But I think that's part of the reflection of what we've done this for 40 years. Yeah. Instead of teaching kids in civics and history class what we've done right, we concentrate on everything that we can find that some people think we've done wrong.
I tell you, I think if there was any problems right now, we'd have a tough time finding anybody to put on a uniform.
Well, I mean, I think there's always going to be people out there. The problem is you find them in the rougher areas. You find them in the rural areas. You find them in the rougher areas of the big cities. And a lot of that is, I think in the rural areas, you find people that kind of hold to that patriotism. I think in the big cities, you find people that need an opportunity to get out. And the Army and the armed services are a opportunity for that. But I think you're right. The idea that the attitude that we saw in World War II, I think would be hard to find today.
I agree. I mean,
Franklin, what do you think?
It's going to have to be a push button fight the next war.
What do you think, Franklin?
Well, we have talked about before that I absolutely think there needs to be more civics education in school. Do I think that's the whole thing? No, I don't. I think to the extent John talked about the media, I don't see it quite the same way he does, but I do think they have a role in that. I think this constant pushing everybody to the left or the right takes us away from the center. And the center is where patriotism is. It's not really on the extremes of any ideology. I think that you mentioned religion a moment ago. John may or may not agree with this. I personally think that it's been disastrous for churches to become more politically involved. Doesn't matter what side you're on, because I think that diverts people away from, in many cases, pushes them away from their churches. If they're there and they start hearing somebody telling them political things that they don't necessarily agree with, they're not inclined to come back.
The only churches I know that preach politics are the black churches. That's the only ones
well,
I
I'm
see.
sorry, that's not true.
Let me agree.
I can't tell you how many times
that's one I've
I can't
seen.
tell you how many times in the last 25 years I went to a church close to an election and walked out and there were voter guides that had been distributed on all the.
Well, Franklin, let me agree with you and disagree with you. The reason you've seen churches do that is because the last 40 to 50 years there has been a concerted assault from the left on traditional values and morals and ethics. And it started with the Supreme Court taking, any instruction based on the Bible out of public schools.
First of all, instruction, true.
Frankly, we can't even say a prayer at graduations anymore. So please don't try and say that there hasn't been a concerted effort by elements of the progressive left. I'm not saying the Democrat Party, the progressive left.
How about communists?
To
we used to call these people communists that was trying to destroy.
Well, by the way, all the people we called communists that McCarthy got downgraded on, when the Soviet Union fell in 1992, we found the records, and all of them were communists. They were right.
No, they weren't.
Yes, they were, Franklin. We got the documentation. They were all the Rosenbergs were working with the Soviets. They were communist spies.
Wasn't part of the McCarthy hearings.
McCarthy was right about all of the people in Hollywood. They all show up on the documents we got out of the Soviet Union in 1992.
And even if that were the case, this was America, and that's not how we do things.
Okay. My
and
point
if you don't
is,
see a problem with that,
morally and ethically,
there's more wrong than just
the
civics.
Culture. This is a culture war. And the culture has been tearing religion and faith down for about 50 years. So part of me agrees a little bit. It is hard when the churches take political stands. But then I also have the problem when I look at a church has a call to protect and support the culture. And so when the culture is going down the toilet like it is, what is the church supposed to do?
Oh, look, no, wait a minute. And I'm sorry, people don't like to talk about it. There were churches here who stood up and from the pulpit opposed the civil rights legislation in the 50s and the 60s.
I'm not saying they're not wrong sometimes.
Well, okay, it's not that simple.
Look,
I'm only saying that I'm agreeing with you to a point. That is, those things are supposed to be anchors that pull people together. And if they engage in conduct that pushes people away or divides them, then that anchor is no longer present.
But you have to understand, and I'm sure you do, that when you're in a culture that 95% of the people believe in a God, then a church can function that way. When you get to a point where we're at, where half of them don't even accept that there is a higher power, there is no common ground there.
And I'm suggesting to you that lack of belief is a symptom of that, not the other way around.
I think that lack of the guy that is considered the father of public education in the 20s was a communist, and he is quoted as saying that if you can get a hold of a generation, you can control the entire country. And I think that starting back in the 70s, when we removed morality, we removed we didn't even remove just God, we removed morality. And you have to pile it on with this idea that we've been giving kids self-esteem. You get a trophy just for showing up. We've got San Francisco. I'll read it to you right now. this is how San Francisco is going to deal with the problem of criminals and all. They've changed all the terminology. So a convicted felon is called a formerly incarcerated person, or a justice-involved person, or simply a returning resident. Now, this is actual rules that the city council has put. That parolees are now called person on parole or person under supervision. Juvenile delinquent is a young person with justice system involvement. Now, the funny thing about that is, if one kid beats up another kid, they're both now called young person involved in the justice system. So the victim is called the same thing as the perpetrator is. And a drug addict.
What is the purpose for changing the names of things? Why are they trying to rename things?
Because in San Francisco, what they say is that these felons and all just have such a hard time, and it's such a stigma. We're just going to change. This is Orwell. This is 1984. Let's change the terminology. And frankly, I'm not against, like we talked about earlier on about the governor, I'm not against that. But you know what? There's just some facts out here. And if you commit a crime, by God, you should have a little bit of a stigma that you should have to really overachieve to get past.
Here's some facts, John. Violent crime overall is at historically low points in the country.
You're right.
Yet our prison population is at historic highs. Something's wrong there. We're incarcerating too many people for too long. We're paying for that, which you ought to be
frankly,
upset about.
You can look at that, and if you're pulling the right people out of the jail system, fine. But you know what?
We're not talking about pulling people out here. We're talking about, in this case, people who've completed their sentences.
I don't care,
They paid
Franklin.
their price
you know what?
that society
you know
said
what,
they
Franklin?
should pay.
If you're a con man in business and you get caught and you start a new business and you truly turn over a new leaf, people have a right to look at you and go, I'm still a little suspicious of you. And you have to overachieve to overcome that mistake. And that's part of what makes you better, and it makes the culture better. And the more we excuse, the problem here is we've excused too many people's problems. And to be honest, Franklin, you're right about the prison system, because that's what you get when they're an adult. The problem is we're excusing it as a child. We don't keep these children under control. We don't discipline them when they're young. So by the time they're old, they do end up in prison.
You know, I really do think prison reform has to start at the family level.
I'd recommend that y'all look this up. There was a Florida teen that has been arrested for making a mass shooting threat. Now, the FBI, he posted it on Discord, which I don't even know what Discord is, but he posted that he was going to get his father's M15 rifle, which there isn't an M15, and kill at least 7 people. Okay? So the FBI, unlike what they did to the Parkland shooting, they notified the sheriff's office. The sheriff's office the next morning went out to arrest him. Google that and watch the video, because the sheriff's department filmed the video. The mother is out there crying, going, well, he's just a little kid. It's just a game. They don't really mean it when they say that. And the officers tell him, said, well, you know what? How do I determine the Parkland shooter from your son? Guess what? This is a felony. Possible felony, and we're taking your son in. He's going to the he was 15, so he wasn't a kid anyway, but we're taking him in. But just Google it and watch her and listen to her. Oh, my boy's a good boy. Oh, well, guess what? When your boy threatens to go kill a bunch of people, we're not going to put up with that anymore. And by the way, when we talk about red flag laws, this has nothing to do with red flag laws. This is the current laws that are on the book actually being enforced.
Let's take a break. We'll be right back.
You're listening to Backfire with Steve Hickson on Whoop FM. Call 423-614-5553 to join in on the call. You're listening to Backfire with Steve Hickson. We'll be right back after this.
You are listening to WOOP-LP, Cleveland, Tennessee. Whoop FM is a broadcasting service of the Traditional Music Resource Center, and we play America's original music.
Inside the train testing facility, our heating and cooling products are put through 16 weeks of extreme temperature fluctuations to simulate 5 years of wear and tear. 150 degrees one day, sub-zero temperatures the next. We test so it runs.
Looking for a heating and air unit that's been tested and then tested some more, and nothing will do but a Trane. And when you want the best in Trane service, there's only one place to turn: Mechanical Systems. Give them a call at 336-5739. 336-5739.
It's hard to stop a train.
Hello, I'm Johnny K.
And you're listening to WOOPLP, Cleveland, Tennessee. Whoop FM is a broadcasting service of the Traditional Music Resource Center, and we play America's original music.
Check into cash. Need a little extra cash right away? Who doesn't? Turn your car into cash at Check into Cash.
Get up to $4,000 with your car title only from Check into Cash. You get more cash with a Check into Cash title line of credit.
Turn your car into cash today at Check into Cash. Visit checkintocash.com for the store near you.
$4,000 title line of credit maximum based on value of vehicle and ability to repay. Subject to credit approval. See store for details.
Hello, my name is Andy Figglestaller with Ed Jacobs & Associates. We are an employee benefit and insurance broker in business for the past 20 years. The new healthcare law, also known as Obamacare, has finally arrived. The law is complex and the choices are confusing. You have questions, we have the answers. It is our passion to find cost-effective solutions for every client. The solutions will be different for every person or business. Let our knowledge, experience, and passion go to work for you. Contact us today and let us assist you through this process. Our phone number is 423-473-0202, or you can find us on the web at edjacobs.com.
No dealers allowed.
Jackson Catnapper, family owned and operated in Cleveland since 1933, offering the best with over 70 styles of recliners, sofas, electronic lift chairs, full living room packages. Call Mike now at 961-7239 because Jackson Catnapper now offers sales to the public
every Saturday. That's right, every Saturday.
From 8 in the morning to 1 in the afternoon. Or call Mike at 961-7239. Or go see him
every Saturday
at 1911 King Edward Avenue, just across from the main plant. Jackson Catnapper, family owned and operated in Cleveland since 1933. 961-7239.
No dealers allowed. Yeah, you looking for something sweet? I know you are. Bring your little sweet self to the Village Bake Shop. Around since 1961, there ain't a baked good in the galaxy the Village Bake Shop can't whip up for you. So when you're ready to treat your mouth to a taste you won't soon forget, get over to the Village Bake Shop in the Village Green Town Center. Or give them a call at 476-5179. You dig?
Inside the train testing facility, our heating and cooling products are put through 16 weeks of extreme temperature fluctuations to simulate 5 years of wear and tear. But these aren't just seasonal shifts. Inside the lab, it fluctuates between 150 degrees one day to sub-zero temperatures and layers of snow the next. Then back to hot, then back to cold. Then hot and cold. Hot, cold, hot, cold, hot, cold. And we didn't even get through the first month. We test so it runs.
Looking for a heating and air unit that's been tested and then tested some more, then nothing will do but a Trane. And when you want the best in Trane service, there's only one place to turn: Mechanical Systems. With more than 30 years experience, Mechanical Systems is your local Trane comfort specialist, and they're ready to make your life more comfortable. Give them a call at 336-5739. That's Mechanical Systems. 336-5739. 336-5739. High quality service and installation for more than 30 years.
It's hard to stop a train.
Economy Rentals, Cleveland's oldest and locally owned rent-to-own store. Can you believe it's almost fall, y'all? And at Economy Rentals, where we make it easy to own, whether you want appliances, furniture, TVs, electronics, and more. Check them out. Speaking of furniture, it's back to school, y'all. You know what that means for the kids? 2 rooms of furniture, only $39.95 a week. Hey, that includes a 2-piece living room suite, coffee table, 2 end tables, and a set of lamps, and a complete bedroom suite with full-size mattress and foundation. 2 rooms of furniture, $39.95 a week. Check them out. Economy Rentals. Hey, also don't forget, washer and dryer combo. You kids may be going to college, may need some help washing and drying. $21.95 a week for a washer and dryer combo. That's just part of the deals you can find at Economy Rentals where we make it easy to own with our back-to-school specials. This month, in August, call them 472-6105 or go see them 901 Sahara Drive or check them out at economyrentals.net and on Facebook. That's Economy Rentals, 472-6105 or 901 Sahara Drive. Attention, Cleveland area creditors. Are you tired of dealing with debtors that owe you money? I'm Jeff Renfro, and I've owned and operated Financial Recovery, a debt recovery specialist here in my hometown of Cleveland for 18 years. We're a licensed and bonded Tennessee collection agency working for a wide variety of creditors, from commercial, manufacturing, physicians, dentists, attorneys, small business owners, to individuals. Look, any kind of business dealing with billing, charge accounts, or even return checks. I know your past due accounts are not a top priority for you, but they would be to me. Let me try to make it easy for you to make a change in the way you've been handling your accounts. There's no contract and no cost to you in most cases, as our fee of only 30% can be added to the balance owed to you. So, whether you have hundreds of accounts monthly and need help with your billing and collection, or you're just an individual and somebody owes you money, let me help you. Give me a call at 400-5376 and I'll come by and see you. That's 400-5376.
Financial Recovery, a licensed and bonded collection agency in Cleveland, Tennessee, 400-5376.
You're listening to Backfire with Steve Hickson on Whoop FM. Call 423-614-5553 to join in on the conversation. Now, back to Backfire.
And we're back. We're back with Backfire. I want to know, this Johnson & Johnson was ordered to pay $572 million in this opioid crisis lawsuit. What do you think is going to happen from this point forward? Because there's going to be all kinds of people lining up for this money.
No, this suit was filed by the state of Oklahoma. Okay. This is not individual people. This is to recoup their money they've spent.
Incarceration and hospital.
And extra Medicaid costs and all that stuff that they've spent dealing with the opioid crisis. All the states have essentially filed these cases themselves.
And Johnson & Johnson stock took a big hit.
I noticed yesterday that Purdue Pharma made an offer to settle the cases against them for between $12 and $20 billion.
Purdue Pharma has pursued we're going to try and settle the case, whereas Johnson & Johnson has fought it, and they'll file an appeal.
This is the same kind of lawsuits that were filed by the states against the tobacco companies, and it's based primarily upon the companies having misled people with the idea that these drugs were less addictive than other things that were being prescribed previously.
Well, what's going to happen is the individuals are going to be suing when this is over with then, right?
Yes.
It's going to be a never-ending process.
There's a lot of concern about this case from the standpoint of product liability in general. The idea that someone who misuses a product. Now, Franklin's making an argument about addictive nature and all, but you know what? That's still an individual. We all have that ability to be addicted to things. Some of us get addicted, some of us don't. And so the idea that you're now going to hold a company liable for the misuse of their product is concerning to a lot of people, especially gun owners.
Well, a lot of these folks, though, are getting addictions from following their prescriptions to the letter.
Yeah,
exactly as their doctor prescribed them, exactly as the manufacturer recommended.
But these
do the doctors warn them about?
They do. I'll give you an example. I think I said this before. We now have some new studies. We send kids all the time to get their wisdom teeth out, and we send them anywhere from 14 or 15 up in their 20s because it's easier to get them out. They're a problem waiting to happen, and they're much easier to get out when they're younger and the roots aren't fully formed. Well, the standard protocol for pulling a wisdom tooth was that you put them on hydrocodone or something like that, 9 tablets or 12 tablets for 2 or 3 days. Well, now we've got studies that indicate a single exposure to that can become an addiction. So the oral surgeon, now first off, we didn't know that. So the oral surgeons are now trying not to give that. But at the same time, we've got a population that's like, you mean you're not going to give me a narcotic pain medicine? You just cut my jaw open and dug this, thing out of it?
It wasn't a problem back in when you used to do it the other days. What's changed?
The culture's changed.
Is the medicine different?
No, the medicine.
It's the same medicine.
This medicine's been around for 150
so
years.
What was the problem?
Well, OxyContin.
The refinement of the medicines, but morphine and all those things have been around. Some of this is cultural. We've become a culture that doesn't expect to have any pain whatsoever. And so, when you go to, if you say, look, I don't want to be laying in the floor, rolling around in pain, that's understandable. But when you say, I don't want to hurt at all, I don't want to have any discomfort at all, that's a completely different standard, and it takes a different level of drugs to achieve that.
I come in here every Wednesday morning.
What?
Oh, in pain.
Pain
and suffering.
All right, Franklin, I'm going to give you the question of the day. What do you want to talk about?
Well, I'm just curious what y'all thought about the president's performance at the summit there.
I thought he did a great job.
Well, let me just give you a couple of examples here.
Before you give examples, let me say something.
Okay.
He doesn't do anything for politics. Now keep going.
Okay. Well, and let me go through my list here. Okay.
Yeah.
First of all, while he was there, he gave a unprompted statement about how much he and Melania have come to like and understand Kim Jong-un. The very next morning, the White House had to issue a statement that Melania had never met Kim Jong-un. Then he was asked about why he didn't attend the climate change session during the summit.
He didn't want to waste his time.
And he said, I was meeting with the leaders from India and Germany. The leaders from India and Germany were at the climate change session that he said he was meeting with.
Well, he could have been meeting with. There are all kinds of diplomats that go to these things, Franklin.
Oh wait, we're not through yet. We're not through.
What did he also say? He didn't want to waste his time going to a climate change?
Look, I'll be honest with you, Franklin. None of this stuff's going to bother me.
Well, no, there's a point where credibility matters.
Let's keep going. Franklin.
Then he said, in the middle of all this, that China had called to make a deal on this trade war thing, and within an hour they'd issued a statement that says we have no record of any calls being made. And then they sent Steve Mnuchin on the television shows to say, oh, well, we're having a dialogue.
They are having dialogue.
Well, but there were no new offers that had been made.
It doesn't matter.
That's
See, Franklin, here's the deal. You just look.
No, I'm not.
You are. You're nitpicking this to death.
He then said, wait, there's more.
Okay.
He then said in the same time that the chairman of the Federal Reserve is a bigger enemy to America than the chairman of China.
He thinks that the Fed is keeping the interest rates too high.
The interest rates are at basically one of the lowest points of our lifetime.
No, they've been lower. They were lower all during Obama. Most of us thought.
No, not all during Obama.
The bulk of it.
He's saying every time the economy gets going, they want to raise the rates.
And it's like half a point higher than it was when Obama was at the lowest. It's not. We don't have high interest rates.
He's saying that if they'll leave it alone and let the economy go, the economy's going to get stronger. Every time the economy gets better, they want to raise the rate.
Well, now they talk about it, which knocks the economy back down.
Go ahead, Frank. What else you got?
He just kept going. He then decided that Russia should rejoin the G7 without asking for anything in return from Russia. Well, he then went on to say,
I'll tell you what.
While on foreign soil,
he said he'd rather have them there as not there. That's what he said.
He said we could just solve so many problems.
No, he said he'd rather have them
with us.
He'd rather have them in the meeting as not in the meeting.
Well, they were in the meetings then when they created all those problems.
Under Obama.
Okay, so what? What did Obama do?
Nothing. That's the point. He didn't do anything to stop it.
Well, he punished them, though.
No, he didn't, Franklin.
He kicked them out of the G7.
Well, here's the deal. I'm glad
and he
you said
got
that.
our allies to go along
I'm
with
glad you said that.
He couldn't get our allies to do anything.
That is a perfect example. He kicked them out of the G7. So that's his punishment for them.
Well, it hurt them
Trump actually sanctioned the companies in Russia. He sanctioned individuals in Russia.
As
he
did
increased
Obama.
No, he didn't.
Yeah, he did.
Trump put on much heavier sanctions as soon as he got into office.
But he added to the ones Obama already started.
But my point is, Franklin, even liberal Democrats had to admit,
He
if you
then-
actually looked at what Trump did, he hit Russia
He
much
then-
harder than Obama did.
He then,
But
because
Obama
I know
kicked
what,
them out of
because
the
I know
meeting.
what patriotic people you are and how you'd feel about this.
Okay.
He then trashed an American president and praised Vladimir Putin while on foreign soil.
Was he talking
Which
about
y'all said,
Obama?
Yeah, which y'all said was something you're never supposed to do.
You're not supposed to, no, Franklin, you're not supposed to criticize the sitting president while he's on foreign soil. And by the way, if Obama had the decency to be like George Bush and not be political, he's just starting a new initiative to fight gerrymandering. Not charity, but political. Obama has been way too political during Trump's term.
Go ahead.
And then he decides on his own, apparently, that he's going to suggest to all the foreign leaders that they show up for the G7 next year at his own resort where they can pay him for the privilege of coming to talk
he
to him.
he did that for profit, I'm sure.
That's exactly what he would be doing it.
So what?
All those foreign governments have to pay a ton for the places they go
So
to.
what? I don't have a problem
So
with
what?
that.
I don't have a problem with it.
That's because you think it's okay for
If
him to
Obama,
sell
look,
the
Franklin,
if Obama owned a resort somewhere, he could have his people
I
there.
guess you don't have any problem then
Obama
also
never-
with his next
Hey,
thing that he
Obama
did,
never had
which
any
is,
business then.
Which is, because you're so anti-socialism, John, you don't have any problem with his next round of $14.5 billion in payments to farmers to make up for the tariffs that he's put into
Look,
place.
Franklin,
Where's he
here's
getting the
the
money?
deal. Even-
Where's he getting the money?
From us.
He's charging tariffs.
Even liberals.
Who pays those,
Franklin,
Steve?
even-
Foreign government.
Look,
No,
Yeah.
we pay them
Here's
when
the
we
deal.
buy the products.
No, we're not buying the product. I hope we don't.
That's
ever.
what a tariff is.
No, let me
It's
tell
a
you something.
tax on something we buy.
No, let me tell you something. It's a tax on them sending it here.
If they don't pay it, we do
No.
when we buy it.
No.
Am I wrong, John?
No, but here's the thing, Franklin. And even most people that are they're fair about this, even on the other side of the political spectrum, will say some of us may not always agree with the tariff war, but we really don't have a whole lot of ammunition. And the problem with the Chinese is for
They
the
need
last
America.
for the
That's what
last
they need.
3 or 4 or 5 presidents, Republican and Democrat, no one has taken them on.
And so what happened? We
$1 billion a year.
under God
They're making $1
forbid,
billion
and here's the problem, because Barack Obama did it following the Republican model. He negotiated the Trans-Pacific Partnership, which got us into an alliance with all
But it
those people.
sucks for us, Franklin. This goes back to our original argument. Obama is a believer in that America is the problem, not the solution. Yes, he is.
It
He doesn't.
created
Obama
alliances
doesn't.
that we
really-
can use
apologize
against
for
China.
everything.
China wasn't in the Trans-Pacific Partnership. All of our allies and trading partners were.
And it wasn't a good deal for us. Obama never negotiated good deals for us. Trump just announced a new trading deal
Instead
with
of
Japan.
that, by pulling out of it,
with
we
Japan.
increased China's leverage out there
Actually, we
instead of
didn't,
weakening
Franklin.
them.
While Obama was doing all of this, they were building bases in the. And by the way, the whole fuss over Greenland, for example.
Yeah.
China tried to buy Greenland just last year, and then tried to build 3 Air Force bases on old U.S. bases. We had to do extensive lobbying, the Trump administration did, to get Greenland to keep Denmark from letting China have those bases. Greenland is strategically important, but your side, just
Denmark
like you,
is a
just,
NATO
just
ally.
like you did now, you all are so blinded by your hatred. Let me give you a perfect example on the Greenland thing. If Obama had suggested buying Greenland, I would not have reacted to that. I would have gone, well, okay, let's look at that. I don't understand this. Now I understand how strategically important Greenland is because I've been reading about it. We've tried to buy it 2 other times in history, but your side is so blinded by their hatred that you will jump on an issue just because you don't understand it.
Oh, I understand it just fine. Here's what I understand.
Okay.
They're already our allies. We've already got a base there. We'd be paying money for something that we've already got. But that's what the great deal maker would think is a good deal for America.
We can expand our use of Greenland is the point. Why we tried to buy it in the 18th century, and Harry Truman tried to buy
and
it.
That was before we had
and
NATO.
Senator Tom Cotton talked to them, the Danish ambassador, just last year about trying to buy it. It is strategically important, and it would be a good buy. Now, whether we, want it because Denmark has to subsidize it to the tune of several $100 million, and whether we want it that much or not, but it was enough of a strategic importance that China tried to buy it, Franklin. And we're in a global war with China. But my point is not whether we buy it or we don't buy it. My point is your side, instead of being able to just look at an issue, you're so blinded by your hate of this president.
What I'm blinded by is the persistent nature.
That you're blinded.
What I'm blinded by is the frequency and depth of lies this man tells.
Like if you like your insurance, you can
yes,
keep
John,
it like
exactly
that.
like that. And I'll take that one lie versus the 400 that we get weekly from this man. Can the man actually say anything that proves to be true?
So he and Melania not having a good understanding of Kim Jong-un?
He said Melania has come to like him a lot. She's never met him.
She probably read the letters.
She's never met him.
First off, Frank.
Can he not just look at people? It's like he thinks nobody's going to check on what he says.
Let me see if I can explain this to you.
It makes a difference because our allies know he can't be trusted. And everything he says is a lie. It is true.
Hang on.
He is the laughing stock of the world.
Let me see if I can explain this, Franklin.
He is a laughing stock with all of our allies, and you guys had the gall.
He is the laughing stock with all of our liberal allies that I don't care about.
Which allies are
Franklin, I don't care about.
Allies?
Here's the deal. I don't care about anybody but America. I don't care.
That's right. And because of the way you think, John,
I don't care.
You can't deter. You think that America was hurt the last 50 years to have alliances.
They were hurt. They were hurt the last 8 years by the former president. Let me see if I can explain this. I want to make sure the people understand what you're saying. First off, he didn't say that Melania had met him. He said that Melania and I have come to understanding. And most husbands who have a good relationship with their wives talk to their wives about things. So that's the first thing. So that
actually the
Franklin,
words he used was the first lady has gotten to know him.
She may have. That doesn't mean she's met him.
Well, John, you met Lamar Alexander a lot, and I've heard you talk about him a lot. Well, heck, I guess I've gotten to know him then.
What? Franklin,
what a crock. You guys will excuse anything this guy says, no matter how stupid it happens to be.
I never met Abraham Lincoln, but if I read 5 books on him...
You got to have something with some meat on it before we're going to let you get away with it. You can't talk about Trump's wife.
Hang on. Let me say this, Franklin. Here's the point. Whether you think he lied or he didn't, I think you're looking for anything you can grab hold of.
Anything I can grab hold of.
Can I say something?
No.
Whether
I love
the
choice of the words "grab hold of," though, because that is something he tells the truth about. He can grab hold of
That's
something.
my point right there, Franklin. You are so blinded by your hatred, you can't even talk about anything. Here's the point. Here's the point. You are arguing about whether Melania met someone or not, and you're conflating it with hang on. You're conflating it with a president who lied to hundreds of millions of people and took their health insurance away from them through that lie. You're saying that saying Melania knew someone is a comparable damage situation to taking hundreds of millions
what Barack
of people's
Obama did was get 20 million people more insurance.
He gave the money to Iran, I believe.
No, he gave it to the insurance companies.
20 more million people got coverage because of
they got coverage.
So
they get no care. They got no care, but they got coverage.
At least with his lie, people got helped.
All right, let me bring something up. This last thing, maybe Franklin can understand this if Trump's not associated with it, so maybe he can actually.
He's at a climate change meeting right now. He's probably busy.
The San Francisco Airport has banned plastic water bottles. Okay, and they say that they're doing it to help save the planet. Now they didn't ban plastic bottles of other types, so soda drinks.
Yeah.
If you ever pick those bottles up, you'll notice that a soda drink plastic bottle is significantly heavier and thicker than a water bottle. So the people who can't now buy water will buy soda bottles, which are much, much thicker and heavier and probably do a lot more damage. So the liberals in San Francisco have convinced themselves that they've made a difference. They've actually probably made it worse. But this article was interesting because what it talked about was liberals in a lot of these cities have put a 5 cent tax on plastic bags because these bags end up in the ocean. And by the way, the majority of the plastic in the ocean actually comes from Asia, not America. But one of the reasons for that is because that bag or that bottle has no value. So Michigan, for example, now this is the difference between a Democrat approach and a Republican. Democrats put these taxes on the plastic to try and basically force you to quit using them. Michigan has a 10-cent deposit on every plastic bottle and can sold. So a pop bottle that costs 99 cents actually costs $1.09. When you bring the bottle back into the store, you get the dime. So a case of beer cans is worth $2.40. So what happens is, in Michigan, you don't have people throwing the trash out, the plastic bottles, the plastic bags, because it has value. And so this argument was, and this is a Republican argument, instead of taxing it, do the deposit so that people have a reason to collect the plastic and turn it back in.
In the old days, that worked really
Children
well with
and
the bottles.
homeless people would be out picking up every can and every bottle on the street to turn it. Yes, Franklin, what you do is you make it profitable to do the right thing. You don't make it a pain to do the right thing.
You don't take everything away
I
from
can't believe you're not going to agree with this. See, the very idea.
Actually, what I was going to disagree with is that was all done by Republicans in Michigan, which is the heart of what you just said.
No, what I said
which is
was
just an outright lie.
No, Franklin, on average, I didn't say the Republicans
Yeah,
did it
you
in
did.
Michigan.
You said it's
no,
a Republican
I
idea.
said I didn't say it. I said that we believe you make things profitable
John,
for people
I
to
am
do.
perfectly happy when Republicans try to do anything because usually their approach is to simply do nothing and then criticize somebody else's idea instead of coming up with some of their own.
I got one last thing I want to say. What does China have that we need?
Markets is the only thing I can say.
The problem over the last 40 years with China is that we convinced ourselves that engagement would affect their political system. And the previous premier may have been a little open to that. The current premier is not. They are cracking down on Hong Kong. They are cracking down on religion. He is a communist. He is a communist that wants to dominate the world. Right. And so engagement has not changed the political dialogue in that country at all. And I think Trump realizes that. And it is painful. And I think Trump realizes, and a lot of people realize, that the trade war is painful. But we probably need to fight it, and we need to win it. And frankly, here's a really thing. It'll be interesting to see how you view this. Trump, this is very damaging, the trade war, to Trump's reelection chances. Most presidents haven't and wouldn't do this for that very reason. So he is actually doing something that he thinks we have to do, even though it jeopardizes his own political career.
He says he doesn't do anything for politics. He does it for the good of America.
He's certainly not doing this trade war with tariffs for politics because it hurts him, and it may hurt the economy. And if the economy goes down, his reelection is probably in jeopardy.
I bet you if anything goes wrong, we'll start making our own.
He's not doing this to help himself.
The first thing I would say is that during his campaign, I guess I'll kind of give him credit because he said he would do this, but he also said it would be easy and fast.
He did say that, Frank. He says stuff like that all the time.
Okay, well, so, you
just like Obama said, I have a pen and a phone. They have their idiosyncrasies.
We've got to go, and it's late, but I've got one thing I want to say about that. It would be a lot faster if he could get some cooperation from the Democrats.
We didn't need any cooperation to do those tariffs.
You've been listening to Backfire with Steve Hickson, John Stanberry, and Franklin Chansey.